Hey, everybody. Welcome again to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntra is here. Look who's back to talk about the wrap-up of Season 2 of Harley Quinn. It's the co-showrunner, Patrick Schumacker. Welcome back, Patrick.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Nice intro, by the way. I think that's new, or it's new for me.
It's new.
Yeah, I like it.
My video skills have progressed since we did our Season 1 recaps episode by episode, and yeah, I'm trying to do a little bit better video wise. And hey, man, seriously, you're like a real champ. Honestly, man, we've done so many of these, and I really appreciate it, especially given that we're able to talk about such a quality show. Congratulations, man! 2 great seasons on Harley Quinn.
Thank you very much.
You know, and it's I heard the news that soon to be debuting on HBO Max.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. It's funny because, like, you know, we had heard rumblings internally, and it sounded like it was going to happen, and then we weren't sure, and then, you know, lo and behold, a few, you know, websites picked it up, and then it turned out that, like, I guess HBO Max had sent out an email alert about it, or it was included in like a newsletter or something. So we're like, okay, great, that worked out. nice to know. But yeah, it sounds like I think sometime in the fall it's going to happen. I don't know if they've released a premiere date yet, but I think it's sometime in the fall.
That's awesome, man. Will it still appear somewhere else commercially the way it did on the Sci-Fi Channel for Season 1?
That's a good question. I haven't heard anything yet about Sci-Fi or anyone picking up the second season. You know, at the time of this recording, we're like a week out from having wrapped it all up. So, you know, I'd like to think that's a possibility. You know, it will still, of course, exist on DC Universe in the meantime. But yeah, that would be great because I know it did really well. The first season, at least, airing on Sci-Fi and those reruns. So yeah, I'd love to see that happen. But I've picked up subscribers since we did those episode by episode recaps of the first season. So I will point people to the Word Balloon YouTube channel to check those out if they want to hear those. We did a talk after episode 2 of Season 2. The Riddler University episode, and we talked about the first 2 episodes, and then we promised that we would come back at the end of the season. And as you say, it's been a week since the last episode aired, and I've seen nothing but great feedback as far as, you know, certainly the way it ended, which is terrific. And you know, I mean, obviously throughout the season, we should talk about the Harley Ivy romance, which finally, you know, had a nice Thelma and Louise, but a happier ending to it. Yeah, exactly. We're going to open up Season 3 with them just driving over a cliff and dying. Psych. We put you through the ringer, guys. We really paid it off.
You know, again, you're, and I know too, you're going to do a Harley Quinn comic book story, right? Is that? Yeah,
that's exciting. Yeah, it's this Harley Quinn Black, White, and Red anthology series, which the first issue of that has dropped. It's a digital first endeavor, and Stepan Sejic, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
Yes.
Yeah, he did the first issue, which I loved, and these were all just like 10-page or, you know, at most 10-page. Harley stories that exist kind of in their own canon. And I don't know how many of them they're putting out, but, you know, it's like a riff on the Batman Black and White which is great. I think one of my favorite all-time Batman stories is that Neil Gaiman one that he did with Batman and the Joker, almost treating them like actors on a set. I don't remember what year that was from, but
yeah.
Oh my God, that was so great. And so I'm doing a story. I don't know what number it is in the order, but it takes place in the universe of the show. And so it's going to hopefully sound and look like the show in comic form. And that'll hopefully come out sometime later this summer.
Did one of the animation designers draw it, or are they going on model from the way the show looks?
Well, so that's the idea. So where it's actually still, to my knowledge, we've settled on who we're approaching for the artwork, and if we end up with who we want, it'll look exactly like the show.
Great.
I hope I'm not saying too much, but yeah, no, there's still some things to work out, but I've written this.
Okay.
And with the exception of a few jokes that were deemed not teen readership friendly, let's say, the script is written. So I got to come up with some alts. Had some maybe some jokes about Jeffrey Epstein in there.
Wow.
So those will never see the light of day.
Consistent with the show, but that's great.
Yeah. Let's just say he was invited to the Legion of Doom's Christmas party, and they want to sweep that from their records.
That's outstanding. Jesus. That's great, man. Well, again, I don't know if you know, I talked to Kelly Sue DeConnick a couple nights ago.
I saw that you guys were on Instagram Live, and so I'll have to watch the recording on YouTube. But yeah,
she was telling me she and her son bond and watched the show together. Which is,
how old is her son?
He's 13, and he's a good 13. He's a good 13, and
right.
Also they're like cool parents, but not irresponsible parents in terms of. And that's why. And she even blushed. Is like, I don't believe I'm doing this, but. Me and my son, I'll confess, we do watch it together. I'm like, that's fantastic. And really, that's the great thing, because yes, it's not for every 12 or 13-year-old kids, certainly.
Yes.
But again, I can, and at least with parent supervision, that's good. And it's honestly, Patrick, I mean, beyond the jokes, the other interesting thing is, and I understand that this is DC Comics versus DC Animation, but it almost seemed like Sam Humphries, when he was writing the Harley book, had to introduce this relationship with Booster Gold. And you probably know that the comic fans have wanted a Harley Ivy like relationship for years, and really have been very vocal about it. And DC's been the comic side has been very hesitant about it. And I don't know how much that impacted the animation show as you guys were writing it and making it.
Oh, I mean, well, in terms of like any kind of hurdles or anything like that we experienced, there weren't any. We decided fairly early on, I think, that this was going to be the trajectory of the second season. Like even before we had completed writing of the first season, we were like, okay, first season covers kind of Harley figuring herself out as far as her career goes, as far as what she wants, and in that sort of facet of her life. And that's why we stayed away from any kind of Harley romance, aside from like the backslide with the Joker and everything, which was very short-lived, but felt nonetheless like real. And then we were like, okay, well now we have this whole season, which the second season in front of us, and we're gonna slowly but surely plant those seeds where by the very end of that second season it will. Yes, and they are a couple now, and DC never said anything. So they never ever once put up any. And I mean, I've said this before on the show that I don't know. I'm never going to question why we had so many gifts and so much license to do whatever we want. I don't know why. I could postulate, maybe in the animation space it would get a little bit more freedom than say what we had on Powerless. I mean, that's my only comparison from personal experience. There were a lot more restrictions in the live action world, but yeah, no, I mean we said this is what's happening. I think the love triangle aspect was intriguing dramatically for them, but no, they never once told us please don't, or please consider something else. So maybe they also looked at this as an opportunity to do something kind of unprecedented. I mean, and I hesitate to even say unprecedented, because clearly, like, we were inspired by what had been done in the comics, prior to the show's existence and all that. And there's always been, this feeling of, like, even from the Harley and Ivy episode of Batman the Animated Series, you could make the argument that there was some, sexual tension between the two of those characters.
Absolutely.
So it's been there for, like, 26 years or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
But we just, it was all, it was full speed ahead with Harley Ivy. And it was, it was hard to keep that under wraps, because, this is another drum that I've banged for a long time, which is, these episodes were done, being written at least, in February of 2019. And so, we knew what was going on, and the fandom was so clearly, vocal about craving, Harley and Ivy getting together. When's that going to happen? Is this going to happen? And I'm like, I could have just been completely silent, and maybe for the better, for my own benefit, been completely silent, because I teased it, knowing full well that, we are paying this off. But I had teased the sort of what I kind of considered key episodes in season 2, and we can, get into those later, but sort of the tentpole moments in the sort of evolution of Harley and Ivy's romance, and had the, the air dates down and everything. I had one incorrect air date down, which was like the death of me for a week on Twitter. But yeah, I think, like, we ended up kind of pissing off a lot of people, because we teased it without the acknowledgement that this is going to take all season to really happen. But I think now that I've had to mute a lot of people on Twitter, John.
I understand, man. It is a hot button subject, and to the point where they kind of had Harley, or rather Ivy, on ice for a while in the comics to avoid the subject. And I think, to avoid that sexuality question in general. And again, this is my supposition. It certainly seemed that way. And that's weird. But again, hopefully with everything that's been happening in society, it's like, all right, enough. Like, let's treat this like adults and accept that this is a way of life that, hey, is out there, and everyone's going to have to find a way to reconcile that fact, and hopefully do it, in the proper way of, okay, let people be people, that's simple.
And it's like, and here you have these two characters, they do have this history. It seems ripe, and it's always, for us, I think it's like, if you can do it, why not? This is it's become so much clearer to me, having done it, just how underrepresented, the LGBTQ community is.
Agreed.
And it's been, it has been put out there in such great relief, and, getting messages from people all the time on social media from the LGBTQ community, just saying, you have no idea how much this means. And I don't have an idea. I mean, I have an inkling of an idea, but, I'm so glad that we did it. And I'd love to say that, our our finale, by design coincided with, Pride Month and all of that. It was serendipity, but it was great. Maybe that was the universe telling us something, or an enterprising programming executive from DC Universe who just didn't say what they were doing. But that worked out very, very well, I think, in that unintentional messaging. So yeah, I'm really happy that we were able to do that. It's been special.
Well, that's what's going to be interesting moving forward, because a lot of times the comics will end up taking their cues from television and film. And I think that really the popularity of the series hopefully will resonate. Obviously it is, because they're doing the digital first comic right now that eventually will be collected in comic form. Yeah. And I think that's great. And really, man, again, I love how it goes back and forth, the influences, because We talked about the first 2 episodes before, but really to set up in this, because I imagine that both seasons were produced as 26 whole episodes, and that the trajectory of the story was already in mind with you all, writing staff and producers, in terms of, no, this is where we're starting in season 1, and this is where we're ending in the 26th episode, 13 in season 2. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and what I love is that No Man's Land, and it was, again, when we spoke, I had only seen the first 2 episodes, so I really didn't realize how much No Man's Land, the great story arc of 20 years ago, was going to play such a big role in this second half in season 2. And I mean, really, just so many great nods. The crazy kangaroo court of villains, but again, always with a great comedic spin, having Bane be the judge, but even better, Man-Bat being Harley and Ivy's representative. And that was great. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to hear who's playing Man-Bat. And all we got were those great shrieks.
I want to say that in the end, we actually ended up using Justin Halpern's screeches for Man-Bat. My writing producing partner, long time. He's really good at that kind of stuff. We used him in the first season, temping Cyborgman's sister Muriel, and who ended up using Phil Lamar, our utility player Phil Lamar, and he does Black Manta. He does squid monkey pusses. That's what it is, a monkey puss. Very versatile, that Phil Lamar. But yeah, the screeches that Justin had in for Man-Bat, we were like, okay, well, let's just leave those in because they're working real well. And then I think he ended up voicing some parademons later on. That's like his wheelhouse. Screechy.
That's outstanding, man. So many great, more new character moments. I love Two Face and Bane together, and of course, Bane's still the butt of all jokes, but. Yeah, that was great seeing them play off of each other, and also, I mean, really, once again, Bane's trajectory through season 2 was, first of all, getting the pit, and also how happy he was to get the pit from Two-Face, and then it becoming like the new jail and stuff, and a great nod to Dark Knight Rises as far as using the pit and everything.
Absolutely, but Bane is clearly the most progressive of all of Gotham's villains, turning the pit into essentially a spa and rehab facility. I mean, he's definitely like the most woke of, like, he's way woker than the GCPD, right? Like, yes. and Arkham, and that sort of methodology of rehabilitation has proven time and time again that it doesn't work. But maybe there is something to Bane's The Pit. And we'll never really know because of its demise at the end of episode 19. I'm calling it 19, but it was episode like season 2, episode 5 or something like that.
I'm with you, man. No, it's and God, yeah, Victor Zsasz never seemed happier than when he was in the pit, which was great to see.
Chicago and Brad Morris voicing Victor Zsasz in group therapy.
And George Lopez is coming. He's flying in.
That was actually George Lopez as himself. He came into the booth to record essentially, his actual stand-up, which was, the stuff in there about his, homeschooling. Was actually Lopez's bit. And then, thank you, good night, the pit. Bane is, Bane's, he's a progressive villain. He's also a comedy nerd. There's a lot of things that we introduced about Bane.
Close-up magic. Now it's time for some close-up magic.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of crossover, at least in our experience in LA, of magicians and comedians. They tend, in the Venn diagram, there's a lot of overlap there. So.
Well, the Magic Castle is a great venue for both, obviously. So I'm hip to that. Absolutely. Yeah. So
I assume that Bane has taken some classes, maybe even taught some at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in Hollywood at some point in his life.
Or Groundlings, absolutely, man. That's
or
awesome.
Groundlings. I mean, it's definitely, that stuff was, I'm sure, like subconsciously inspired by James Adomian, who voices Bane. Coming from that world of UCB and stand up and improv and whatnot. I mean, he's like James is our country's, or maybe the world's, most prominent Bernie Sanders impressionist. His Bernie Sanders is unbelievable.
Was he doing that live where Trump and Bernie, like the two comedians? Was that him that was doing
him?
Bernie?
Yeah, he was down at Comic-Con doing that. With,
yeah, I've seen that. Absolutely.
Adam Manwick, or I'm butchering his last name, but yeah, Anthony, the Trump impressionist. Yeah, those guys are amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. No, we can even go back to the introductions of Batgirl and Catwoman, and that was terrific this season and everything, and really, getting to know them a lot better. And
yeah. I guess that the Catwoman episode was the first episode that we haven't kind of talked about in depth. Yeah. It was the third episode of season 2, and it was written by Sarah Peters. That was her first credited episode coming to the staff a little bit later in the game, and she is a she's not like a huge comics nerd, but she loves Batman Returns, the film, the Tim Burton film. Michelle Pfeiffer is Catwoman, of course, and that, like, she has clothing like from 1992 or whatever, whenever the film came out, from her youth, and like just celebrates that movie in particular. And so I think like that really informed her take on Catwoman. She kind of talked about Catwoman as every woman has this like cool friend that they want to be, that wears like the outfits that no one can pull off except for them, and then you end up buying the same outfit even though you look like an asshole, and like but you just want to be them because they're so cool. And that's Catwoman for Ivy, because Ivy, she's this aloof character. She's kind of chill, but that's like a defense mechanism for just not wanting to sort of participate in society. And but there's one human being that Ivy just goes moony over, and that's Catwoman. And so we wanted to get the Gotham City Sirens together at some point. Yeah. And so we were like, okay, as part of this opening sort of, I guess I'd say 5-episode arc of when Harley's sort of exacting her revenge on the various rogues of Gotham City for having put her literally on ice.
Literally on ice, yes.
Yeah, she needs, to get to freeze, she needs Firefly's gun, and that is being held in this museum with this very obscure Batman villain, Dr. Trap.
Yeah, I had never heard of Dr. Trap. I wasn't sure. That's amazing. And good for you guys for doing your research and finding this guy.
That definitely required research. That was one of those examples of, we need a character who's into, this sort of thing, into booby traps and obsessively collecting, these weapons.
Was that a 50s, like Dick Sprang era?
No, I want to say it's 90s. I should have.
Wow.
It's late in the game. He was introduced. I was talking to Alan Sepinwall the other day about it. Dr. Trap was introduced. Oh shoot, I'm having a complete brain fart. I'm looking it up right now because.
Okay, and while you're looking up, that's like the guy from the first season that you guys introduced. That was in like, what's his name again?
Was it Praxis?
Yeah, Praxis. Absolutely, yes.
He's another 90s character. I mean, he really looks 90s with the ponytail.
Totally.
He looks like a Rob Liefeld character.
Yes, he does. No offense, Rob.
No, I'm not saying it in an offensive way. It's just
that's great, man.
I mean, he popularized the ponytail.
This is true.
Dr. Trap was once Larry Trap.
Larry Trap, of course.
Larry Trap with 2 P's.
He sold me real estate once. Go on.
Yes. I'm looking at the villains.fandom.com, and we get the show gets a nice mention in here. Come Lovely. On, where's your first appearance, Dr. Trap? It was in a mini series. From the 90s.
Crazy.
Oh, come on. Well, this is terrible. Can you just cut out this part of the show?
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Just cut to a graphic of Dr. Trap, and then I come back.
All right.
Like basically speaking volumes about how much I know of Dr. Trap. Oh, come on.
That's all right. That's what the talkback is for. That's quite all right.
What I should say is we created that character whole cloth. No. So yeah.
That's great.
So Dr. Trap, I'm 100% sure it was a 90s era character.
That's awesome,
man. But anyways, yeah, so Catwoman shows up because we got to get past these booby traps. She's, a cat burglar. She's an acrobat. This is who we need to bring in. And what sort of unique, problem does that present for them? And it turns out to be that, Catwoman's a sellsword, that despite, Ivy being so moony over her, she's going to screw her over just like she does every time they pull a heist together. Yeah. And so, they have to get through this sort of museum of horrors, this, all of these insane booby traps with, Dr. Trap acknowledging that there's a whole, cottage industry of henchmen available to put together these traps, even in, post-Quake Gotham. He's got alligators in there. Somehow they got those into the city. Maybe they're from the zoo. I don't know.
I hear you, man.
They're probably from the zoo. That's what I'm going with.
Who played Catwoman again?
Catwoman was Sanaa Lathan. And she, I'm trying to think most recently, Sanaa was on Twilight Zone on CBS All Access.
Cool.
Jordan Peele Twilight Zone. She was in season 1 of that. Yeah, she was fantastic, just playing sort of the who gives a fuck kind of attitude, to a T. And she really, she brought like these actual sort of feline qualities to the character. She would, sort of roll her R's and,
yes,
meow every once in a while when she's getting, surprised by something, hissing at adversaries and whatnot. So, yeah, that was Sanaa Lathan.
She was great. No, and then really was channeling not only a bit of Michelle Pfeiffer, but also a Julie Newmar kind of quality. Because Julie Newmar, I think every now and then would kind of purr as she would do her lines and stuff. So that was terrific. And then Mr. Freeze and Mr. Freeze's wife, man, that is the cartoon gave Mr. Freeze that amazing tragedy that we're all like, oh man, poor Mr. Freeze, and we all feel terrible. And then even Scott Snyder built on it with a Batman annual in the last couple of years. And then you guys, of course, you turned it into a hilarious parody.
We made a mockery of one of the most tragic villains in the history of Batman. I think we ended up kind of getting to a pretty tragic place. And that's in large part thanks to Alfred Molina's performance as Mr. Freeze.
He was great.
He was so fantastic, and
yeah.
I got to participate in that recording session. And he walked in. We were so just incredibly honored that he said yes, and we hadn't really talked beforehand. But he came in and he kind of was like, well, is there anything you have for me? I was like, I don't know, Eastern European. That's kind of what we were thinking.
Oh, because I didn't know if he had ever watched, wasn't it Michael Ansara, I think, in the original animated series, who, voiced the character. I mean, my God, Michael Ansara, his body of work is incredible. He was Kang in Star Trek, the original series, and in Deep Space Nine and everything, and always brought gravitas to, I mean, even to the point of the blue genie in I Dream of Jeannie, the genie's evil master that showed up and stuff, and former husband of Barbara Eden as well. So, wow. Yeah, you see, that's old time nerd in me knowing the background. So
yeah, I don't know what amount of research Alfred did for the role, but he just came in and like that was the direction we gave him, and he turned. We were like, we want to make this weird sort of like. I suppose there's a little bit of Hannibal Lecter there, just the sort of I'm having dinner with a serial killer or a psychopath sort of vibe to it when everybody's essentially chained via ice to this like grand sort of gothic dining table, And we just wanted to go with straight up like weird. And he's been doing experiments with these snow rats, he calls them, and clearly that hasn't been going well. He's just got a pile of snow rat carcasses, and we just wanted to make him a creeper. He's creeping everybody out. Harley assumes that this guy is just a straight up creeper, and he's put his wife on ice so that he can essentially treat her like a doll.
Right.
And he talks to her as if they're having a conversation. He brings her to the dinner table, and we just kept trying to ratchet up like the sort of death mask on Nora's face, so that every time he cuts back, when he's just kind of doing like a fun, like it's almost like in his head he's like Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara and like Waiting for Guffman. Like he's having company over for dinner, and they're just like vamping, they're telling stories, and then you cut to Nora's face and she's just like and
when he feeds her too.
Oh yeah, the feeding tube. Yeah. And then of course he can't taste anything, so he's asking people to describe the mouthfeel of the steak. And butter-like, and he's sort of having this like mildly erotic experience when Dr. Psycho's telling him it's butter-like. So yeah, we were going for like absolute creepy until the end, when we were like, okay, we want to try and make this as sincere as possible. This guy genuinely, he worships his wife. He would do anything, to bring her back to life and to be able to live life to the fullest. And at the end of the day, he sacrifices his own life for her, because Harley has put him in this situation, and so it is directly, Harley's fault that Mr. Freeze is having to sacrifice himself to bring his wife back.
And he didn't leave Nora alone. Then Nora comes back for the bachelorette party and the wedding. That's just fantastic.
Yeah. She's got nobody. She's got nobody except for the Cobb squad.
That was, and also the Condiment King and Kite Man's rivalry suddenly comes up as Kite Man is trying to find the perfect venue for his wedding time.
Yes. Also, Alfred Molina voicing the wedding venue rep.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
I was sitting there like watching Alfred Molina talk about the history of corn, and I'm just like, oh man, Alfred, I'm sorry you're slumming it, man.
That's everyone. I mean, the thing is, we forget how great of a comedian Alfred Molina is, because one of my favorite things he ever did was him and Steve Coogan in Coffee and Cigarettes, that great Jim Jarmusch movie.
Oh yeah,
It's been
a while. Yeah. Oh, he's so funny. He's so funny. Him and I still reference the scene from Boogie Nights when he's like brandishing the gun in his living room. He's got that like open robe, and Mark Wahlberg sitting on the couch like, am I gonna die? And that he's got Alfred Molina's got that guy with the poppers, just the
fireworks and everything. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Absolutely, man. Hilarious. No, and I mean that's the thing, because he was a great Dr. Octopus. Even his 5 minutes in Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course, and so many other great, indie movies and other British movies and things. No, he's a genius. So that's seriously, man. You guys are a great. Once again, give credit to your casting people, getting these amazing people.
Oh yeah, we've been just unbelievably lucky getting all these guest stars, and Rachel Dratch as
was she Nora?
She was.
Oh,
Nora.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Again, this is what's great about voice actors. They can do anything, and you don't have that. You don't see their head. You don't see their faces when you hear the voices. I would have never guessed that was Rachel Dratch. She was fantastic.
Yeah, and they can come in for an hour of their time and just kind of come in their sweats to the studio and knock out an episode. So I think that's maybe part of the incentive of being able to get so many great people, so they can squeeze it into their busy schedules. Yeah, the one time that I feel like the Dratch that I know and love came through in in that episode was when Harley and everybody are just kind of like watching her awkwardly as she's sobbing over the corpse of Victor Freeze, and they're like, "Oh, so what do you think? Should we maybe get out of here?" And she turns around, "Get the fuck out of here!"
I agree. That was amazing. Who played Condiment King again?
Condiment King was Alan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's
again,
Alan's done like 100 voices on the show at this point. Yeah, had that weird lisp, and like he's just so cocky, like such a cocky nerd, and his fiance was just kind of modeled after Mira Sorvino and Mighty Aphrodite. Yeah.
That's great. Jesus, that's awesome, man. Yeah, Condiment King had quite the hottie. It's like, way to go, nerd. And again, it's that confidence while being a spaz that makes the Condiment King great.
Yeah, that sort of confidence that the Kite Man exhibits, or our version of Kite Man exhibits, not quite on the level of Condiment King, but I think it's the dumber the theme, the higher the confidence. There's still something majestic about kites, right? Like watching them soar in the air.
Oh, yeah.
Feeling. So he's not so cocky, but he does call that his superpower. Well,
and then I mean, and I'm going to bounce back and forth, but the dinner with Ivy and Chuck's parents, Kite Man's parents, and there's a little pathos for Kite Man and stuff. It kind of explains his character and why he's trying so hard and everything, and knowing that he's not measuring up.
Yeah, that was Andy Daly as Kite Man's dad. Andy Daly, also the voice of Two Face on the show, and the president of the United States.
Oh, great!
He was kind of doing a Thurston Howell III kind of riff, and then Jessica Walter was Kite Man's mom.
She's great.
She was fantastic, and she also voices Granny Goodness on the show.
Oh, that's excellent, man! How's gonna get to Apocalypse? That's fantastic, man.
Yeah, but so Jessica, she came to the show because she worked with executive producer, co-showrunner Dean Lorey on Arrested Development for a couple of seasons there when Dean was on that show. So that's how we got Jessica. That's how we got Tony.
Okay,
sure. He had a relationship with
Tony Hale, absolutely.
And so we have those two, meeting at their favorite restaurant, which feels like I'm trying to think of like a national reference, but there's a mini chain out in LA called El Cholo, which is sort of it's, I would say, like a mid-range Mexican restaurant, kind of maybe Tex-Mex kind of thing, and that's their favorite restaurant. This couple that looks like they only like hang out in the Hamptons.
Yes.
And you can't even. Kite Man's dad calls guacamole your mashed avocado. He doesn't even know the proper terms. He just likes the food. He's just a tourist at this Senor Mexico's Autentico. Senor Mexico's was the name of the chain. For some reason they love it. They love it. It's just like a curiosity to them, I guess.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah, I can appreciate, absolutely, and having that kind of white bread attitude, absolutely, man. Well, and that's why it was great that Ivy really does go like back and forth in terms of she obviously cares for Kite Man, and really even in that moment standing up for it and like, no, fuck you. This is why he's all messed up. Is your people's attitude and stuff, and also that they're kind of white bread superpowers as well. And she can float, and I forget what he does. I forget what the father does.
He freezes things, I think.
Okay.
It was so brief.
It was a quick little bit of magic and everything. Absolutely. And she levitates it.
But no, Ivy sees, how put upon, Kite Man is with his parents, and just how vapid they are, and they're only interested in her because of her powers, and that they might provide meta-human grandchildren for them. That is a sort of point of pride, and they're just assholes. So we wanted a moment where Ivy, could demonstrate that she does, really care for Kite Man, and she appreciates everything that he does, for her. And yeah, I think, given where we end up going in the show, I think Ivy and Kite Man, they could have gotten married. They could have maybe made it last even, I think it would have been a very unfulfilling marriage. But, at the end of the day, they do really care about each other. It's just not a love that would be exciting and fulfilling and, continue to surprise every day.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but nonetheless, she's got her fiance's back. Yeah, until the boom tube shows up, and
yes.
Harley Ivy, the boom tube, which Kite Man, when Ivy says there's a boom tube, he thinks she's talking about his penis. Penis. Any chance that we have to just completely make fun of terminology from the 60s,
you took it. Absolutely. Well, I like too, and I mean, because I want to get back to the episode after Mr. Freeze, the Batman episode, but also just like I love that you used Darkseid is leaving now. That's
Darkseid's Seacrest out was just the pregnant pause before he finishes the sentence. That Darkseid was actually just it came about because he's just really slow sometimes at forming sentences.
Well, too, that obviously the Mr. Miracle series and everything, that whole Darkseid is. I mean, that's the thing. I love how you guys used it and made fun of it. That's terrific. And Tom has been on Word Balloon talking about how he got that from Julian Lytle and just Darkseid is. And it's like, okay, that's great that you guys extrapolated and made hay out of it. That's terrific, man.
Yeah, Darkseid, the Darkseid is thing, and some of Darkseid's monologuing was like clearly, inspired by comics canon and his sort of like,
sure,
I might call it rambling. Which of course, when Harley first meets him, he's speechifying, and she keeps trying to interject, and he keeps going, and she's waiting. Finally, it's like, oh, he's done. Okay, all right. Well, here's what I want. Yeah, I mean, we ended up wanting to go to Apocalypse purely because we were trying to figure out, at this point in the season, you have Harley and Ivy, they've kissed at the end of the Pit episode.
Yes.
She's, Harley is, Ivy's in denial of her true feelings. Harley doesn't quite know how to broach the subject, but they've agreed, that, okay, no, this is going to really screw up everything good that Ivy has with Kite Man. Harley's, as a friend, I'm going to respect your decision.
Sure.
And then she tries to tamp it down, and she can't. And so, what is the sort of, everyone is very sort of self-destructive in these sort of situations, or oftentimes can be. And Harley certainly would be. What is the most sort of self-destructive and just plain old destructive, what's that she can get to? Like, what's the most destructive place that she can get to? And so we thought, harnessing an entire army of parademons and decimating Gotham would be pretty destructive. So yeah, we had to sort of reverse engineer how they ended up getting to Apocalypse, which led us to Dr. Psycho and this thought that like maybe he's tried to make this pact with Darkseid before, as kind of an evil genius, and so he's the one who knows about the boom tubes and the mother boxes and everything, which leads them, of course, to parademons, which leads them to Mr. Miracle's sort of Vegas style show that he's doing outside of Gotham. Poor Mr. Miracle, scot-free, just getting a bat to the face. You didn't kill him. Some people think we killed Mr. Miracle.
I wondered if you had killed him as well, because you do kill characters in the series and stuff like Freeze. So I'm like, is he dead?
Yeah,
jumping from his head.
I think Scott's alive, but the audience thinks that it's just part of the show.
Exactly. They just started plotting.
It's got to be part of the show. He's like, he's like Chris Angel. He's just going to show up outside at the box office.
Like Chris Angel, mind freak.
Exactly. Yeah, Mr. Miracle is going to mind freak them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And well, you know, we weren't going to kill Mr. Miracle. I don't even think like DC would have allowed us to do that.
But they were cool with Freeze. They were okay with the Mr. Freeze death.
Yeah, I think the villains, like there might be a different sort of code of conduct with villains. I don't know. We didn't really, you know, we never questioned it. Like, why are you letting us do this?
Yeah, and it's, I mean, already it's an alternate universe anyway, and things progress differently. So
sure.
Sure.
And then, one conversation that did happen about, what you can and can't do was, we have Darkseid. So the way that we wanted to introduce his character is just, completely dispassionate, even in like the moment of killing was, we have him kill Forager in a pretty horrific way. And originally that was Light Ray. And and DC was like, nah, Light Ray feels like too much. And we were like, okay, how about Forager? And they were like, yeah, okay. So,
that was easy.
yeah. So we're like, all right, just let's go down the list of new gods. Okay.
Exactly.
And so we only landed on Forager because we couldn't kill Light Ray.
I would have been bummed if you killed Light Ray. I won't deny that. Everybody loves Light Ray. That's his name, for God's sake. Come on. That's hilarious. That's fantastic. Jesus. Then
of course, just the one thing I want to add to that sequence was like this whole, I would say the whole idea of Apocalypse and Harley in the Fury army and all of that, not army, armor, that chainmail and all that was inspired by Sam Humphries and John Tim's run on the recent comics. Just like I was obsessed with that image of Harley in the Hammer Harleen sort of chainmail and all of that.
Sure.
And it was just such a cool looking image. And we were like, we got to do that. So that was kind of the initial inspiration for that. And I ended up getting an amazing commission from John.
Great.
I posted to my Instagram and on Twitter.
Hey, that's awesome.
Oh, it's gorgeous, like full color. You've got Darkseid in the image as well. Anyways, I'll
have to look that up, man. That's fantastic.
It's super cool.
That's beautiful, man. Excellent. Very, very cool. Well, back to episode 5 of the second season and the Batman episode, because you had told me before during our first season recaps that again, and really also the Apocalypse stuff too, it is so funny that things wind up in the zeitgeist, that different creators are all kind of thinking about the same stuff. And like you'd said, the two nerds that are watching the episode, the meta moment and everything. And the one guy's got to release the Snyder Cut, and it's so funny. Do you tell the story of how audiences initially saw that and were led to a different conclusion? Yeah,
well, okay, so the backstory with this episode, Batman's Batman, was that we knew we wanted to do an episode that focused solely on Batman, because we know, at the beginning of the season, Bruce is in a coma. Batman tried to rescue Harley and Ivy, and the Joker Tower collapsed. He gets, just crushed under rubble, but he's alive, and but he's in a coma, and he's, there's no Batman during any of this, which hence, Batgirl making an appearance.
Right.
Distraught because his best friend, or so he calls him, has been missing, and
Gotham's gone to hell.
Gotham's gone to hell in his absence, and all of this, all hope is lost. Well, we knew that at some point we were going to have to bring Batman back, and so we wrote a version of that episode. Writer Sarah Nevada Smith wrote a version of that episode that had it was a Batgirl centric episode that had her and Gordon taking down Professor Pig. So that's why we have that character designed in the show, and you see him in the background in the Bane Pit episode. He's one of the prisoners in the pit. We have that character designed because originally we were going to do a Professor Pig episode with Batgirl. It's sort of a street fighting kind of mystery episode with Batgirl, and eventually she gets Batman's blessing and all of that via her taking down Professor Pig. Well, it wasn't working, and so we had to kind of punt that the writing of that episode to kind of later in line, and knowing full well we're going to put it back in the episode 5 slot. But what ended up happening was it got punted to kind of the end of the run. So around February of 2019, we had kind of figured out the story that you see in this episode, and we had we ended up coming in short in the runtime, and so we needed about like 2 minutes of content to get to our minimum. And we were like, well, we always knew that we were kicking around the idea of like bumpers for the show with Harley and Ivy in this kind of like meta way, just like taking a break from the storyline. They need like a rest from having taken down all of these major supervillains, and they were going to talk to camera in kind of like a Fleabag way, and it just wasn't, and sort of warning the audiences like, we're not in this episode, we're taking a break. And they were like, oh, is that too like meta in a Deadpool way? It kind of felt like it, the direct sort of thing. So it really didn't feel right. And then Captain Marvel, the film, the MCU film, was about to drop with Brie Larson. And I started watching all of these these YouTube reactions to the. I think it was even like the trailer. I don't even think anybody had really seen the film yet, or some had, some hadn't. But it was this very consistent sort of white male reaction to that film, and that she was a Mary Sue, and that it was just this tsunami of virtue signaling, and like everything's going to hell because of this like social justice warrior agenda.
Yep.
And ruining what I love.
Yep.
About and there's no place for this in my canon. And I was like, oh man, like I feel like when our show finally drops, we're gonna get that kind of response.
Outstanding, man.
Let's get ahead of it.
Yes.
So wrote up that scene. It was this kind of like mashup of like everything that had been said about Captain Marvel, and then I jokingly put in the stuff about this guy's wearing the release the Snyder Cut shirt, the other guy's wearing the Last Jedi is not canon, because in my sort of anecdotal experience of those fandoms online, there was some overlap. There was some
absolutely.
Again, not to speak for the entire release the Snyder Cut movement, which we'll get into in a second. But I am speaking to the entire Last Jedi is not canon movement. I feel like they're, whatever. I love that movie. But anyways, so here we are, flash forward to about a week before the episode Batman's Batman is going to air. The response to Harley's been pretty good. Very few detractors, especially like the ones that were sort of in that Captain Marvel hater category. So I'm thinking like, okay, well, it's gonna play because it's poking fun at like this fandom, and people will get it, but it's not gonna, it won't have the same kind of like impact that it had. But okay, so then I get a direct message on Twitter from a critic and a reviewer, and saying, I love the show, because this thing gets released. Our episodes get released a week early to reviewers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I get a very nice DM on Twitter from someone who says, I'm a huge fan of the show. I think it's brilliant. Love everything about it. Love everything about this upcoming episode, except the bumpers. With these fanboys in the basement. I think you're really going to like alienate a lot of people, particularly the release the Snyder Cut movement, who is, for the most part, very well-meaning. And I sat there. This was like a Friday night, a week out. Like it's a Friday night. Like people have gone home from work, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, oh God, what are we about to do? Are we about to like completely alienate a large percentage of our fans, of just like DC fans? I start like, really spiraling. So I just email people from the studio, from Warner Brothers Animation, and I'm just like, okay, I don't like, so this reviewer suggested just completely like cutting out the bumpers entirely.
Wow.
And I was like, we can't do that. A, we're going to come up short. B, like, I believe that, these guys exist. T-shirts or no, like forget the T-shirts.
Sure.
That's just sort of, but then the more I thought about it, I'm like, oh God, like are we doing like a political cartoon essentially, where this thing that's on this guy's shirt is supposed to be, who this guy represents, and I'm like, if anything, it feels like we should have swapped the shirts, where like the Last Jedi guy is the unwavering a-hole, and the other guy who seems to have Phil Lamar voiced the Last Jedi is not canon guy, and James Adomian voiced the release of Snyder Cut guy. I was like, oh, maybe we should have flipped the shirts, because at least like the Snyder Cut, we're not then saying like everybody who supports the Snyder Cut is a misogynistic, hater and all this stuff. So, anyways, what I emailed people like, I'm like, how late is it in the game to like paint out the Snyder Cut thing on the guy's shirt? And they're like, I guess we could do that, but I don't know. Let's we like it. And I'm like, yeah, I like it too, but like, man, I don't know. And I kind of wussed out, and like, at the end of the day, it like ran all the way up the flagpole. And like everybody was okay with it, including DC. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. If DC is okay with it, like, then it must be okay, because they would definitely have, they've got a horse in this race, like way more than I do.
Sure.
So, all right, we're going with it. We're going, okay. And like, like it came out, and it got like picked up, a bunch of sites picked it up. Entertainment Weekly talked about it. Like I'm actually very, in hindsight now, I'm relieved, and I'm glad that I was talked out of erasing it, because it just would have, I think that would have sent the wrong message. And the Snyder Cut fandom, for the most part, has been very vocal in their ability to take a joke. And on top of that, they ended up making shirts. The release the Snyder Cut guy became like a meme. Like they made shirts that ended up selling. I bought a few of them. They sold these shirts, and all the proceeds went to a suicide prevention charity.
Oh, that's great.
Because obviously, Zack Snyder is involved with that.
Yeah.
And so that ended up, they ended up, kind of, making lemonade
into a positive. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I thought that was really great. And in hindsight, it was able to kind of actually make some good because of it. So, the first idea just being that, we're trying to take this South Parkian approach to being like an equal opportunity offender, but then some actual good came out of it. So that was kind of the backstory to that whole thing. The other weird piece of information about this episode is we almost aired it like out of order. Like the production order was, out of order. And, I was very cognizant of like this potentially slipping through the cracks, and, sent out a lot of emails saying like, just want to make sure that this is going to air in like the number 18 slot instead of the number 20 slot, because that was the order of production. Everybody's like, and then this article came out because the Warner Brothers releases the air dates for episodes, and this article came out saying, this is what we can expect, and what do we know, what can we sort of glean from the episode titles is going to happen. And I read the air order, and I'm like, oh shit. And it literally came from this article. It was like, I want to say like comicbook.com or comic book resources. I can't remember which, but I immediately, emailed our friends over at Warner Brothers Television PR. And I was like, just want to make sure. And sure enough, like it was in the pipeline to air in the wrong order, which like it would have kind of been disastrous because, Bane basically what would have happened was we'd have the Bane pit episode. And then after that, a week later, you'd have the episode where Bane gets the pit. So
I see. Sure,
it wouldn't have made any sense narratively speaking.
Right.
Which, by the way, I've been through that experience on broadcast television way back with Shit My Dad Says. We aired, and that show was like fairly episodic. Like you didn't have to air them in order, except for this one episode where like he gets the dog like 3 weeks after an episode with the dog.
Oh, geez.
So it's happened before, and I had PTSD from that experience. But but that is the story of Batman's Batman, which ended up being one of my favorite episodes.
It's a great episode.
Yeah, and it's the only episode that has any audio recorded in the times of quarantine, because we had to do some ADR with Diedrich Bader as Batman, and he ended up recording that a few lines of it from his wife's closet.
Wow.
With me attempting to direct him via, iPhone, and he's got his laptop and his daughter's like microphone plugged directly into his iPhone. And like, it was a whole thing, which, if we get a third season, I don't know if that's going to end up being kind of like the new normal.
Sure.
It may very well be. We recorded Diedrich like that. And then Ron Funches ended up recording some King Shark dialogue as well for the finale from his home.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is too that am I right? Because I think you said this the last time we talked about the T-shirt, that people almost assumed that that you guys were almost telegraphing that the Snyder Cut was in the process of being released, from HBO Max, as we all now know.
Yeah.
But that you had like kind of advanced knowledge, and that was almost kind of a signal to the Snyder Cut fans, hey, this is coming and everything. And am I right? That was like, no, we just were, like you said, you were kind of, it was just like Last Jedi is in canon. That was just another group, a very vocal group out there that were voicing their displeasure.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to take credit for Zack Snyder's Justice League coming to HBO Max next year. So why not? Yeah, it was us. No, it was complete serendipity. I don't know if the timing of their announcement had anything to do with like it being in the zeitgeist again, because say Entertainment Weekly picked up the story that we were poking fun at that fandom. That's the only potential possibility, which who knows, but no, it was it's probably complete serendipity in terms of the timing there. But I am genuinely. It's funny because like I got a lot of people contacting me. I've since back when my DMs were open to anyone on Twitter, I got a lot of people contacting me saying like, do you support the Snyder Cut, or are you just making fun? And like my truthful response was like, no, I think like the director's cut of like everything should be released. I want more of everything. It should be out. There's no reason that like it should be stifled, other than I get it, like budgetarily speaking, like the juice may not be worth the squeeze, because who knows what state it's in, from everything right. I understand, of course there's like a director's cut in some version of it, but you're talking about, a $500 million, blockbuster feature film, much of which is done, via visual effects. And, who's to say that it's going to be a good investment? You're talking about a company, you're talking about a corporation, making these decisions, and they're, a slave to their bottom line, essentially. So I am surprised pleasantly so about what they're doing, because I assume what they're doing is very expensive.
That's what they're saying. Yeah, 30 million, something between 30 and 50 million to
Right.
do it.
Which means
the budget
more.
of a small movie.
Well, yeah, which means it costs more than that.
Probably,
But,
yeah.
But I love that it's coming out. I love it.
I agree with you.
I think it's going to attract a lot of people to the service. I will be watching, at midnight or whatever. I will be up until 4 a.m. watching that extended cut as soon as it comes out. I'm very excited about it.
I completely agree. And going back to even things like when they released the DVD of the Superman 2 Donner cut, I love that they did that. I think the Daredevil Ben Affleck movie director's cut is superior to what we got in the theaters. And and even Batman v Superman, back to Zack Snyder, the director's cut is absolutely better than what we got in the theaters. And it's like, why didn't we get this film? Because I probably would have had a better opinion of it had we had it that way. So no, I'm intrigued as well. And everything that is, all the other rumors that have come since then, God, I hope that Affleck and HBO Max are serious about letting Affleck do a Batman series. And kind of his vision of what he wanted to do with a solo Batman film is realized on HBO Max. I think very interesting times, because that and the fact that, we're talking about Keaton coming back for the crossovers and everything, and or to be in the Flash movie and potentially in other films. God, yeah, man, these are fandom dreams. Absolutely, this is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you. All right, well, back to what you actually did plan. And some of the things.
Wait, sorry to interrupt. Side note, just in case nobody out there has figured out the origins of Dr. Trap, this is what I have it. Okay?
Tell me.
So he first appeared in a comic book series called Chase.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so that was J.H. Williams, and Dan Curtis Johnson was the writer. So it was 10 issues.
Yes.
And it was 1998, I think. No, maybe 99.
Mr. Bones is in that series. It was about, I forget the intelligence organization that Mr. Bones is part of and everything. Chase was part of that.
Yeah. So that
amazing.
Late 90s was Dr. Trap's inception.
Oh my God. Man, I'm going to have to talk, when I talk to Jim Williams, I'm going to have to ask you about Chase and everything, because we're eventually going to have a word balloon conversation. He came on when he did that great charity book about the Las Vegas shootings. He was involved in that anthology, and that's the only time I've had him on so far. And I'm like, oh yeah, James, we gotta sit down and talk about Batwoman and everything else you've done. So yeah, it's good to know that.
So great.
Oh God, yeah, beautiful artist, absolutely. So the other half of that episode 2, Batgirl and Gordon obviously being together, and finally, as a team, and of course the macaroni. And Alfred's role. Yeah, really, we should talk about just, first of all, God, I hope that is a springboard, that whole episode, that you guys could do an adult Batman cartoon, because honestly, all the interplay with Batman and Alfred was just fantastic. And I love that when he wakes up and he draws the curtains and Gotham looks great and it's a poster and then everything's gone to hell.
That was 100% inspired by, it was the end of the first Captain America.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
But it's like the low rent version of that. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. hasn't paid for like an entire room. No, it's just it's a blown up poster of the Gotham skyline. Like with like the well greetings from Gotham, like cropped out of it. Alfred went to Kinko's while Bruce was in a coma. That should be that's my Harley Quinn black, white, and red story. It's just Alfred at Kinko's. What? This is weird. Yeah. Yeah. So the macaroni has a very weird inception. So, all right, this is like 2018, maybe even 2017. So at that time, my daughter was like 2, and I watched a lot of YouTube, like children's music videos and things like that with her. And I kept hearing Yankee Doodle, and I had never really like sat down and like closely paid attention to the lyrics of Yankee Doodle. but there's the stuck a feather in his cap and called him Macaroni. I'm like, that's just nonsense, right? Well, surely it can't be. So I go on, I Google it, and and I find out that the origin of it is that a macaroni is a nickname from back in the day for sort of foppish like cads, right? Like, so it's like it's almost like the 1700s equivalent of like metrosexual.
Yeah, like a dandy. Yeah.
A dandy. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm with you, man.
So, and then I mean, if you go to the Wikipedia page of Macaroni, like the like the daguerreotype or whatever the illustration that it's up there, that is hilarious, and it was like the inspiration for what Alfred ends up wearing with that giant, Inspector Gadget style like wig, that has all of those insane contraptions inside of it. And we were like, yeah, okay, maybe Alfred's like, this is Alfred's sort of, the historian in him, the weird sort of crossover of like British and American sensibilities. And it just also is funny. Yeah. It's just like, because just that image was like making people laugh in the writer's room, like before we ever were like, oh, this is what Alfred should be wearing when he's fighting crime in Batman's stead. And we were always like, well, Batman's going to think that like that is just the dumbest thing in the world. Like Bruce is going to be, we were like, well, Bruce is like, what's the comedic angle of Bruce? When he's sort of, convalescing. Well, he's going to be this angry sort of alpha frat guy who's like pissed off that he can't get back into action, and you've got his like, his butler telling him that his body's writing, or his mind's writing, his ego's writing checks that his body can't cash. Sorry, and he's just like gonna be petulant. And we, the whole thing with him just like mocking Alfred's voice before getting on the phone with Lucius to build him the demon bat suit, which was that was the inspiration for that the demon bat armor from the comics.
Sure.
Was the inspiration for that sort of like exoskeleton or whatever you want to call it, that he ends up wearing that kind of augments his broken body.
It reminded me too of Nightfall.
Yeah.
Do you remember Nightfall and everything?
Yeah.
Obviously when Bane breaks Batman's back and he's got to, and also ironically, as we're recording this, I had a live conversation last night with Paul Jenkins. Mm-hmm. And there's the whole Batman never sits down joke in your episode as well. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And again, it's like, oh God, because when I watched it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be talking to Paul in a few weeks. That's going to be great. So that cracked me up and everything. And it's like, because seriously, that was like the greatest, as I told Paul, one of the best moments of him, an editor telling him, Batman never sits down. And it's like, fuck you. Are you nuts? He's a human being. Of course he sits down. Jesus. And then of all those, I hate memes for the most part because they're weaponized for a lot of hate these days. But that was one of the best uses of memes where it's like, oh, really? Batman never sits down. Here's one. And it's like, yeah, dumbasses, shut up. He's a human being. Of course he sits down.
Problems, man.
Well, then again, that's why truly there was that one great scene in Nightfall when he talks to this character, a superhero character called Hood that's operating in England, and Batman shows up on a rooftop and he literally has himself like lashed to a pole. And because of the cape, you can't tell that that's how Batman's standing up, but it's to give the illusion that, I'm still Batman. Don't worry, but I need your help, pal. And
FDR.
What's that?
He's FDR.
Exactly, and that's in your scene. He is FDR, and he can't stand up or he can't make a solid bowel movement, as Alfred points out.
Yeah, well, Bruce can, but he knows someone who can.
And also Gordon's idea of the missile firing from the codpiece.
Okay, so that I feel like this whole episode has this like motif of like men and their ridiculous weapons or ideas for them. And so that whole thing was reverse engineered because So, okay, when I was watching the production process basically goes, you have the script, you give it to the director, who has a team of board artists who create a boardomatic, which is, where you take all of the recorded, they essentially very crudely animate. Animate is even generous. It's literally just like stick figures and figuring out your shots that you want and the setups and whatnot, all cut to the radio play. So you have all the voice performances, but you have that. So our director of this episode, Juan Mezzaleon, who came to us from Rick and Morty, brilliant. He did the pilot. He's done a ton of episodes.
Okay.
So he added in the crotch missile to the fight between Batman and Bane. Prior to that was just his invention out of thin air, and I was like, oh, holy shit! Like, that's so funny, but we have to set that up. Like, can we? Like, we had Gordon asking about for funds for tanks and whatnot. He wants Bruce to basically fund the police, to overfund the police, and I was like, oh, we got to add it in, like where Gordon just says, like, I don't know, just like spitballing, like I want it like a suit that shoots like a tiny missile out of the crotch. And so we had Maloney record that, and we added that in so that whole thing was set up. But that was all because Juan had added that beat in with the missile. So we're like, yeah, let's have Gordon like come up with the idea, and Bruce being like petulant and angry that he's like pent up in this mansion is just like, that's a stupid idea. And then he's just like, give me Lucius Fox. Can you add in like, I don't know, like a crotch that shoots like a tiny missile, like a codpiece? I don't know. I just came up with it.
That's outstanding, man. Well, and again, that's why I would love to see. First of all, obviously, I want to see a third season of Harley Quinn. But honestly, it's like that entire episode. I'm like, it would really be great to see an adult Batman comedy and have Diedrich, just like the way they did Teen Titans Go, and kept a lot of the same voices and the general sensibilities, but made it this amazing irreverent comedy, as opposed to the original YA Teen Titans cartoon and everything.
Right.
Why not? Oh God, yeah.
They do so much great stuff. They get away with a ton too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I also love the flashback episode of Harleen and the Joker's sessions, and also we learned a bit more about Harley's first encounter with Ivy and everything. I thought that was a great episode and a lot of great backstory in that.
Yeah, that was the first episode written by Jameson Borak. It was his first episode of television that he had written as well. He was our script coordinator. Or as they call it in the world of animation, senior secretary. They have these very archaic terms in the animation world for lots of jobs, but like particularly, you normally have like writer's assistant or like script coordinator. That is called senior secretary. And then also if you have like a PA, like a production assistant, they're not called a PA, they're called a clerk. So weird. We wanted to get them like barrister wigs or something to like, or they start like wearing macaroni costumes. But anyways, Jameson,
we need more wigs in our society. I completely agree with that. That's excellent.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the next shirt that we'll have a character wearing, so we can.
The barrister. Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so Jameson wrote that episode. I think of anyone in the writing team or on the writing team, Jameson's probably the biggest BTAS fan, or Batman the Animated Series fan.
Yeah.
And so he really wanted to do a story that was kind of like an homage to that series, and then also a little bit of like an homage to like the Nolan verse. And so he kind of did this like mishmash of that stuff, going back into like Harvey Dent's, political career, and him as this sort of consummate, snake oil salesman, and that he only cares about the upcoming election and the voters, and is so self-serving. And then of course we had the I believe in Harvey Dent like pins, which were the Nolan nod or one of them. Certainly. And then of course like the Joker's plot to escape Arkham and hiding the bomb in the heart of Little Italy, which turns out to be the nickname of the Italian chef who works at Arkham and prepares all of Joker's meals, which was, of course, a nod to Nolan's Dark Knight and the Heath Ledger Joker. And like even like the way that Joker is kind of styled in that episode with the shaggy
Longer hair. Yeah.
Was the Heath Ledger Joker nod. And so, we had a lot. We got to make that episode kind of like a pastiche of all of our favorite, past Batman creations in film and television. I love that episode too, because it's a unique episode in that it's a flashback. We hadn't done that before, but I also think that Jameson was really able to find the comedy in what's an otherwise like really like heartfelt and dramatic story. And then of course you've got peppered in with that like Gordon trying to squeeze into the Batmobile that doesn't really have like it's got like a rumble seat in the back, and he's having to go over the seat, go over the chair to like fit in. We actually had to like we didn't, but our props designer Andy had to redesign the Batmobile for that gag to accommodate anything in the back seat, like a small child. But but
Giant Gordon. I can't sit up front. No, you can't. Okay.
Yeah, Batman's got to be able to see out of it, have the full access to his peripheral vision. So, or he just doesn't want to sit next to Gordon.
Obviously, the other episode that I love is the bachelorette party. Just that bachelorette weekend. Good Lord, man! And seriously, this is why it's great. And we've talked about it again in other conversations. You have so many women writing the show, and I would, and again, forgive me, but it would seem that obviously the women are certainly much more equipped to tell all the great. I mean, the bachelorette party. All you ever get as a guy is seeing them downtown with the girl with the streamers around her neck and the tiara and all the bullshit that they have, the accoutrements that they have.
All the penile iconography that comes with the bachelorette party.
Everything about it, man. That was awesome. And it was like, yeah, this is great, man. All right, now I'm in on the inside joke of the bachelorette party. That's fantastic.
Bachelorette parties are keeping the penis sculpting industry alive.
God, social distancing might be cutting into that. Absolutely, man. My God.
The only straws we have left in our house are penis shaped.
We need a special, influx of income for the penis making and the bachelorette party industries to continue. I understand, absolutely, and just special stimulus. So, which you're already stimulating exactly.
Stimulus package. That doesn't sound gross.
No. Write that down. That's next season. All right.
Stimulus package.
Kite Man. Hell yeah.
That is poetic. Sarah Peters wrote an amazing draft of that. We barely changed a thing in that episode from her writer's draft. The episode was directed by Christina Soda. Those two were the real, heroes of that episode, I think. And that's my favorite episode of the series, because it was like I understand. It was one that I absolutely couldn't imagine myself, coming together, and one that still managed to pay sort of loving homage to DC canon, Themyscira,
yes,
and the Amazons and that aspect of the the DC universe, but also have a lot of fun with it. And so, the Cobb Squad, has become a meme because of that episode. Getting to do the, Batman 66 sort of, scene transitions with the Cobb Squad tattoo symbol used as a graphic wipe.
Maxie comes back at the stripper fun and everything at the men's club. And what was it? Jennifer, was that her name? Ivy's childhood friend. I mean, that's the thing. It really not only makes fun of the bachelorette party, but also it really is the heart of the characters that Ivy is this antisocial character, and and Harley in the best possible way throws together these people and also bringing back Nora Freeze and everybody. And it's like, it is the bachelorette party from hell. It's fantastic.
I mean, I related to Harley in that aspect of the show, and that I've thrown parties for my antisocial friends and loved ones where they end up being like so bad, because it is just this, you're just like scraping, trying to find people that you're like, who have connections to this person. And then you put them all in a room and no one knows each other. No one wants to be there. And you're like, yo, we are going to have fun. God damn it. We're going to have fun. And at the end of the day, Ivy really appreciated that. And, it was this side of Harley, this completely altruistic, selfless, loving, generous side of Harley that Ivy hadn't really seen before, which, that plus alcohol ends up with them, hooking up.
A couple
times against their, seemingly better judgment. That became a really important episode. Despite all the laughs, it became the super crucial tentpole episode of the season, in Ivy kind of realizing, maybe what I have going on with Kite Man isn't as fulfilling as I thought. That was the episode that I kept kind of touting on Twitter as like, this is the one for all the Harley Ivy shippers to pay special attention to, because I think this is maybe what you guys have been waiting for on some level, I mean, they're waiting for them to just like solidify themselves as, they're waiting for Harley and Ivy to get married, but this was another sort of union that we promised to deliver. And I was really happy with how that episode turned out. And I mean, really, Justin and my main contribution to that episode was the stupid song parody.
The King Shark thing?
Yeah, that was the Under the Sea parody.
Yes. I wanted to talk about that. Absolutely, man.
That's another one of those things where, in the life of a writer, you end up, with your notebook in your back pocket, and it's 3 a.m. This was literally the inception of that idea. It was like 3 a.m. on a set in Vancouver for a dead CW pilot that we produced in the middle of doing All of Harley.
Wow!
In like the spring of 2018, we had this hour-long that we were doing with Warner Brothers for the CW, and you're loopy at 3 a.m. You're just like, you've had like 10,000 cups of coffee, and you're on, hour 13 of production that night. And I was like, these are normally the ideas that come via like THC edibles. But I think it was one of those things where it was like, it was like Wayne and Garth, like sitting on like the hood of the car, watching planes fly overhead. And it's, did you ever find Bugs Bunny attractive when he put on a dress and pretended to be a girl bunny kind of idea? Where I was just like, do you ever think that like Sebastian's argument to Ariel in The Little Mermaid could have just been that you can like shit and piss anywhere in the sea and it just kind of gets dissolved? And they're like, no. and it's like, writing that down. And then I stuck in Justin's head for the longest time. And then we were like, okay, well, this is an episode about, bachelorhood and bachelorettedom, or whatever the word is. And, so what, you got Kite Man's side. Well, Kite Man's, he's sitting pretty. He loves Ivy. But let's explore the love life of other characters in the show. What's King Shark's story? And so, we went into this whole like kind of like epic backstory that had to do with like warring factions of sharks, kingdoms, and whatnot. It was very much inspired by the James Wan Aquaman film, with the 7 kingdoms and all of that.
Sure.
But then we were like, all right, well, what is the case that the sort of King Shark's like keeper, in Samson the Lobster, who looks nothing like Sebastian the Crab.
No, it doesn't sound like him either. No, was that Phil?
Yes, that is Phil.
I thought it was Phil.
Yeah.
Once again, Phil Lamar, everybody. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's such an unsung hero of Harley Quinn.
Great song, man. Very funny song.
So lyrics written by Sarah Peters, and then tweaked by the entire room, and then and then Jefferson Friedman, our amazing composer, wrote the music for it, recorded the music for it, and then edited the song together with the recording that we did with like a click track with Phil, and then augmented by so many of our cast doing voices of other sea creatures in that chorus. So you've got like, if you listen in, there's like it's Alan, it's Lake Bell does like a few different backing fish like that are just like the most like cartoony fish voice. You would never know that it's Lake. So and then that particular sequence was sort of overseen by Cecilia Aranovich, who is our supervising director, and she was like so, I think, protective of that sequence, just being like one giant like Little Mermaid fan, and then also just wanting to make that scene as close to within legal limits.
Sure.
The Little Mermaid, and oh man, she just did a bang up job with Christina on that sequence, and all the board artists really. It looks like a Disney feature.
Absolutely, and I love that last joke of King Shark just slowly like moving through the water to avoid that final little poop that's hanging in front of him.
Tiny kernel. I just love that like the artists like studied like different fish. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
See, and I'll be honest, usually scatological humor is I'm like in Austin Powers. I'm like, okay, all right. But no, it absolutely worked in that thing. And I was dying. It was very funny. And you told me about it when we were talking about the first season and stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's coming. I'm like, I know what's coming. At least you didn't tell me about the defecation part of it. You just told me that, we do a Little Mermaid riff. And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, oh, it's coming right here. I get it.
Yeah. And it was a very long process to finally getting approval from Warner Brothers legal department, which is, it was very conservative and has like a decent amount of like ex-Disney lawyers working for them. And they're like, well, you have to understand that Disney is very litigious. And I'm like, okay, but like, isn't this a parody? And they're like, not by Warner Brothers standards. And I was like, damn it, like, back to the drawing board. And then, so, we had to make a few tweaks. And, the Teen Titans Go to the Movies had a parody of The Lion King in it, which they referred us to, which, gave us hope that we would eventually, find a version of it that worked. And we did. And I still, to this day, think, like the lyrics, check out this grouper, poops like a trooper, is you can put that anywhere in the pantheon of like Rodgers and Hammerstein. I think just the wordplay of that is I don't know. It probably Sarah Peters wrote it. I don't know. It's great.
I wrote my share of sports parody songs in the 90s for my sports talk station, and I really loved it. So well done. Well done. Well
High
done.
art.
Stan Freberg would have been very proud of you guys if you know Stan Freberg's body of work. So, yes, very good. Absolutely, man. No, and, and again, I'm not going to keep you much longer, but I'm going to say like the Justice League stuff, because we really, the marriage speaks for, or the wedding speaks for itself. I thought it was great. I loved seeing, Gordon, obviously. Gordon's whole arc throughout the second season, really getting his mojo back, and again, echoes of No Man's Land. All right, I'm the only guy that can do this job. And I loved when he took back the police station and all the kills as he's wiping out Two Face's men. Are you still handling things, Dad? Yep, everything's fine.
Daddy's got this. That was one of the times that we originally in the original cut of it, we had, in this show's budget, we can't really afford needle drops, but the original sequence of that, maybe somebody will make it online. The original sequence of Gordon just massacring Two Face's goons was all set to Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen.
That's your country right now, unfortunately. Yeah.
It was so appropriate. Yeah. To watch him go full John Wick on Two Face's crew.
There you go. Absolutely, man. Yeah. No, and again, I'm always amazed that, Warner Brothers is like, yeah, okay. That's fine, in terms of, but again, it fits the moment. It did fit the moment. It does fit
the moment. We kind of backed into the moment. That original sequence, that episode was written by Tom Heineman, and his sequence for Gordon taking back GCPD precinct was 4 pages of just action in like a 30-page script. We're like, we got to cut this back. I love all of it. Got to cut it back maybe to like 1 page.
It went on. It was a great scene. No, I honestly, and again, I loved his final plan during the wedding and stuff, and imitating the priest and all of that. That was great. But no, I love too that we forget about the Justice League and the fact that they're still stuck in the Book of Fairy Tales and everything from the Queen of Fairies.
I mean, that's the beauty of having had the runway to do 26 of these episodes, and knowing that we were going to serialize them was like, well, that the Justice League is coming back at some point. They are trapped in that book, and that ended up being this gift for the rest of the episodes that we haven't talked about yet, which brought the Joker back into Harley's life.
Yeah, we should talk about that, but eventually. But go on.
Knowing that. Okay, so the things at this point, we absolutely, in the writing process, we're halfway through, and we know that we want to end season 2 in a similarly bombastic fashion to how we ended season 1. But we were like, we're not going to have the Joker. Yeah, we're probably going to have to bring Joker back because he's the only one who knows where the Queen of Fables storybook was, because he was in cahoots with her in the beginning. So we're going to have to jog normal Joker's memory, which means Harley's going to have to do the thing she doesn't want to do, which is throw him back in the acid to, resurrect the shitty version of him, even though he seems to have his life kind of together.
Absolutely.
At this point. And so she, it's the thing that the absolute thing that she doesn't want to do, to find the book. But, why does she want to bring the Queen of Fables book back and the Justice League? Why does she have to bring them back? Well, what's the worst thing that could happen? It's that, like, I've heard many people now talk about the sort of Vince Gilligan school of screenwriting, which is like, what is the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen to your hero? And that's, her having to be in a knockdown, drag out fight with Ivy, with her love interest, her best friend, the person who means the most to her. Well, how can we make that happen? And we're like, well, we've been kind of planting the seeds that, Psycho is disgruntled in the crew. He's a well-established misogynist who doesn't, the only reason that he's here is because nobody else will take him.
Yep.
And he doesn't feel respected. We started that sort of idea with the Riddle University episode, and him and King Shark having to go out to get the water purifier that turns out that, they go through hell and back, only to find out that no, the power is back on. We got water purifier now. I forgot why I even sent you out in the first place. So he's pissed off at Harley. He's feeling undervalued. They've got the Riddler there as a prisoner. We've planted the seeds that Psycho and Riddler are really at it. Is that just an act? And so that was in the
ether,
the soup of creativity in the writers' room. That things kind of fell into place. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, all right, well, yeah, we're going to have Psycho, mind control Ivy, he's pissed that Harley, A, doesn't respect him, B, has had every opportunity to, take over the world and has squandered those opportunities. So he's done. And but so in the shadows, in the wings, he has forged a pact with the Riddler. They're going to mind control Ivy. They're going to take over. They're basically going to defeat Harley, defeat Ivy, impress the shit out of Darkseid, and he's going to basically make the same offer that he made Harley from earlier. And Psycho will have a Parademon army at his disposal, will take over the world and maybe beyond. So yeah, that leads us to well, I don't want to completely gloss over, Harley and the Joker, having tracked down the Fables book. But yeah, we were like, well, what's the, what we want to explore, like what the Joker's been up to.
The normal life. Yeah.
What is the normal life? He's talked about like kids that aren't his, but they feel like his,
Do you know this story J.M. DeMatteis told that Go Insane? Yeah. Okay, great, man. Because honestly, one of the best Joker stories, and I always, whenever I talk to Mark, I always tell him, I'm like, seriously, man, that like is a classic and such a brilliant story and everything. And yeah, so yeah.
In the same way that No Man's Land was inspiration, as sort of a kicking off point.
Sure.
Insane was absolutely one of the inspirations for, what we ended up doing with normal Joker his character's name was in the scripts.
And more brilliance from Alan in terms of being able to play all that different roles and everything.
Energy, somebody straight out of Mayberry. And yeah, like who did he fall in love with? And who would have a real problem with the revelation that she has been not only dating the Joker, but she has let this guy into her house, let this guy take care of her kids. And so we landed on this nurse. It's like a suburban mom from suburban Gotham. We liked the idea that there was also, to further kind of like separate the worlds that, the Joker comes from with this nurse, Bethany. We decided to make her, of Latin origin. So she's fluent in Spanish. Again, this probably borrowing like from my personal life. I've been married twice. I got married once when I was really, really young, and divorced, married by 23, divorced by 24. But my first wife was from the Dominican Republic, and there's a lot of comedy in that, and like these we were from very, very different worlds, and so that was, I think, why I was so magnetized towards Bethany and just being able to kind of speak to that a little bit. And so, the Joker shows up now, as we know him, the psychopath with Harley knocking on the door, and he's like, oh shit, I have to deal with this domestic issue. And Bethany answers the door with the gun pointed at them because she's no fool. She knows who the Joker is, but she doesn't know that she was, sleeping with him. And so, yeah, we love the idea that, like, yeah, she sort of dips back into Spanish when she gets really, really heated. And, we ended up casting Justina Machado from One Day at a Time.
Oh, that's great. She's great.
And she's of Puerto Rican heritage.
Okay.
And so she said to me in, the booth, and I'm not fluent in Spanish or like regional Spanish by any means, I could kind of get by, but I knew what was in the script, which was Mexican Spanish. And she was like, if it's cool with you, I'm Puerto Rican, I can, change this so it makes sense that she's speaking Puerto Rican Spanish. And I was like, all I ask is that you write everything down, that you, or that you translate it for us literally, so we know what to put in the subtitles later. And so she
were
did
there subtitles? I didn't notice when I was watching. I didn't notice subtitles if they were there. Maybe if I captioned it, maybe if I had closed captioned it, it would have had it, because I did catch punta, which I know is whore, and and so
We may not have ended up subtitling it, but I think it was more. Oh, you know what? It was definitely at least for standards and practices. I needed to have
okay,
her
sure.
down exactly what she said. So, but anyways, so that was why Bethany became a Puerto Rican character, someone of Puerto Rican descent, and so I just loved that like specificity to it. And yeah, so it turns out that the book was in the kids' room, so he thinks, yeah. And then the parademons get a hold of it, and they've got to go into the parademon's nest, which we wanted to be this sort of like H.R. Giger inspired, like sort of it's biological, but it's also technological a little bit. It's sort of it's a junkyard mixed with a bunch of like parademons snot and mucus and whatnot. And of course we have the wedding planner. I don't know what made it to the cut, but the wedding planner, Kite Man and Ivy's wedding planner, is in the nest because she gets carried off in the B story by the parademons. I think we ended up cutting the line from her because she's like shrieking or something. She's actually in the nest, like if you look closely, because I don't think that we have that dialogue in the cut anymore. But yeah, it was Vanessa Marshall as the sort of super type A wedding planner who, even as she's getting carried away by the parademons, continues to talk with her vendors about on her Bluetooth phone, because she's eye on the prize. She's planning a wedding, and nothing's going to get, not even becoming food for parademons is going to get in her way. And then we just wanted Joker and Harley to get into a real predicament with the parademons, only to be rescued by Batman, which was sort of the big reveal that Batman is in fact back,
capable again.
And then we just wanted that awkward scene of Joker and Harley kind of catching Batman up on what he's missed, and having Batman having to hear the absurdity of basically the episode pitch. What? And I loved all that. And then of course they get the book. Zatanna comes, releases the Justice League from the tome from Queen of Fables storybook. And it seems like everything is gonna be okay until Ivy shows up on Bethany's doorstep, ready to murder Harley. She doesn't know why. So leading us into episode 25 overall, which is A Fight Worth Fighting For, written by Tom Hindman, directed by Christina Soda, which was just, we wanted that knockdown, drag-out fight between the Justice League and a sort of, super-powered Ivy who is, being puppeted by a very upset Dr. Psycho.
Yeah. The classic Justice League fight scene that we all love for, the 6 seasons of Justice League and everything. That was great. And then also, like, I love when the parademon is speaking and Wonder Woman looks at Superman, and of course Superman has his woke woman. Oh, sure. I'm an alien, so I have to learn all the different alien languages. And it's like, all right, I know. I do know a little bit of parademon, but still do better.
That's a piece of trivia that the sort of parademon general was voiced by Scott Porter, who also voiced the Flash.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I love Scott. Scott's great. Cyclops, of course, from the old X-Men cartoons. And, Rex Racer from the Speed Racer Wachowski's movie. I love Scott. Great guy. And Friday Night Lights, of course, quarterback.
Yes. Yeah. So Scott was a parademon general in the Flash.
He was up for the Flash role, as I understand it, before Grant got it. I'm reasonably certain that that's the case. He's great, and I'm proud to say Word Balloon fan and former Word Balloon guest years ago when he was doing those X-Men and all those Asylum. I think it was called the Asylum, not the horror movie company, but that one company that made all those great anime Marvel shows of the earlier 2000s, like from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, he's so tapped into the voiceover world and also the tabletop board games.
Yeah.
Guy.
That's excellent, man. And we should mention real fast, this month, they're showing In a World on HBO, Blake Bell's wonderful movie about voiceovers. And she's so great in that, and she made that movie. It's such a great movie.
Check that out for sure if you have not seen it. Oh, it's on HBO. That's awesome. So yeah, then if you have HBO Max, you should be able to watch it as well.
Yep.
I think they've combined them at least, or maybe that's in perpetuity. I'm not sure. The Justice League out of the book, but they're having to take on a sort of superpowered Ivy, who is creating
at her worst.
Destruction. She's at her worst. Harley, now the stakes are that the Justice League are going to eviscerate her best friend and love interest, and she's got to figure out a way to basically stave off Dr. Psycho's telepathic abilities, which brings us to Kite Man and Cyborgman, because it turns out Psy is the answer, because that metal plate that was in his head was able to deflect Dr. Psycho's powers, and I'm trying to remember exactly what came first, but we wanted to eventually have Cyborgman's consciousness after he makes the ultimate sacrifice to save Harley in an earlier episode, which I thought Jason did like an amazing job voicing Cy and bringing that pathos to what's ordinarily just like a completely absurd character, but he was able to bring that pathos when Cy makes that ultimate sacrifice, and in order to buy Harley time against Psycho and his parademon armies when they're trapped in the dome.
Yep.
On the roof of Wayne Tower. But anyways, we were like, we need to, Cy is alive. His consciousness exists sort of, I don't know if you've seen Big Hero 6, but that was kind of the inspiration for Baymax, the lovable nurse robot. His consciousness was, not to spoil the end of Big Hero 6 for you guys, but it was put on a memory card essentially so that, he could be resurrected at the end of the movie in another Baymax body. But we wanted to do that sort of idea with Cy.
Sure. Ghost in the Machine kind of thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, he's talking through his eyeball, which then, he's able to have Kite Man connect to the TV. So we're able to see him in a sort of Max Headroom homage, because everything Cy is, just reeks of the 80s. And so, that was like our Max Headroom homage, complete with the glitching, and all of that, the glitching speech patterns and whatnot. And so, he Max Headroom Cy walks Kite Man through MacGyvering, another 80s reference, these sort of anti-telepathy earpieces, essentially, which then, they're able to make two. Of course, they can only make two. And Kite Man then has to fly in and basically, he gives one to Harley. She's going to implant it in Ivy's ear so that she can be sort of unpossessed.
Sure.
And so that leads us to the big climax, which was, kind of the moment that we were all waiting for in the writer's room, which is Harley and Ivy having to fight each other to the death. What greater stakes could you possibly have? And so, we have that moment where it looks like Ivy is gonna take Harley down, and Harley tries to use Kite Man's Disney princess logic that true love will break the spell, kisses Ivy, and I'll leave it up to the audience's imagination. I think there's a version of it where true love does work, and then I think there's a version of it where, no, like the cynic would say, there is no true love breaking the spell. It was just Psycho's lascivious nature getting distracted by two women making out, that distracted him for the second that Harley needed to implant, the earpiece in Ivy's ear. At which point, it breaks the spell. Psycho tries to command her to do his bidding, and she tells Psycho to S my V. I'm so happy that stayed in there. At one point, we got to know, like, really? And they're like, oh, let's try it. Come on, let's try it. And having Darkseid, again, confused by the colloquialisms of this world, S my V. Having Michael Ironside
Michael Ironside was Darkseid. That's fantastic.
He was Darkseid in the Lego DTVs, I think.
Okay.
And maybe some other animated projects as well. But
I liked him calling back Psycho using the C word about Wonder Woman, and him. Not even I would use that word. And it's like, that was 2 years ago. Leave me alone.
That's a word that made its way to Apocalypse already.
But again, he's woken up to know now that's a place even I won't go. Yes. So that's very cool.
And so they have the upper hand. They're able to defeat Psycho, and we were like, well, okay, Psycho's not going down without just ruining everyone's life. And so that was the reasoning behind his sort of astral projection of Harley and Ivy doing the deed, on Themyscira from a couple episodes. Party. Yeah. And there were a lot of people that thought that was the finale.
Oh, okay.
And that we were ending on that like cliffhanger, because it does. I could see that,
sure.
That was like in terms of just like bombast. Although the wedding and the GCPD raid on the wedding and all that in the next episode is nothing to scoff at in terms of epic action.
Oh, God, yeah.
A lot of people thought that this was the last
12 as opposed to 13, because I mean some series do only have 10 or 12 or whatever, and don't go the full 13.
Yeah. And I think if we end up getting to do another season on HBO Max, I think their orders are like 10 or so. So
okay.
It may be a shorter season. I'm not sure yet, but anyway, so this sort of setting up this little mini cliffhanger, at least, of like, oh, well, cat's out of the bag now. This whole tryst that happened. Kite Man now knows about what's going to happen there, and that leads us to our big wedding episode where even to the last minute, Ivy is like very unsure, and she's like, no, I'm gonna stay down the path that I've been on, and make it happen for Kite Man and me. And it's not really until the vows that he's delivering on the altar that she kind of comes to an understanding that like this is not the life that she wants to sign up for. As much affection as she does have for Kite Man.
Poor Chuck.
So poor Chuck. Yeah, and there's definitely some petitions online to get justice for Kite Man is happening on Twitter. I don't know how big the movement is, but. Some people want to see him get his own spin-off. Some people want to see him get revenge. Some people want to see him, because I wasn't sure, not to gloss over what happens in the episode, but, by the end of it, it really is ultimately kind of Kite Man who makes Ivy sort of see what she wants, and there's been some criticism online that this is like Kite Man kind of like mansplaining. I don't particularly look at it that way.
I don't either, but fine.
I look at it like, okay, this is, Kite Man coming to terms himself with.
Right.
I mean, he himself did not see the writing on the wall until this last minute.
That last moment, absolutely, on the altar. Yes.
And in a way, and it is Kite Man standing up for himself. Like, this is, you guys have been, carrying on this affair, under my nose, and this is like, but forget the hurt of that. This is clearly not what you want. I want this, but you don't. So here, off I go.
Yeah.
And then it releases the kite. the just married guy, which is just so sad.
Yes, indeed.
But and we've taken some heat for sure of like, with Harley and Ivy and the perpetuation of the, secret affair, and, that, Ivy should have been up front with Kite Man about what happened and all of that, to which my response is that I think like love is messy. I think given the circumstances and Ivy's, inhibitions and the scariness of, who's to say, like, at least canonically in our show, that this is like her, in addition to the fact that, she is, messily having this, affair, who's to say that she's come out, and she maybe hasn't yet. So that adds to the, the scariness of the admission of what happened. And so, yeah, it's interesting, like getting feedback now from audiences and sort of where individuals kind of, let's say, moral compasses lie, because you'll get a lot of complaints about Ivy and Harley, cuckolding Kite Man, but there's no complaints about like the beheadings in, in the show. Like, now that's cool. Murder as many innocents as you want with your parademon army, Harley. But you better tell Kite Man that you slept with Ivy.
And that is such a 180 from where, because I certainly know, and not that long ago, where it'd be like, that the violence is too much and that we're okay with the sex. Yeah. And I mean, it's very interesting. No, I understand. And again, this is what society is messy. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. And of course, everybody's point is valid, right? Sure. Everybody's opinion is valid. It's that take is definitely, different than mine. But it's, as a straight white male, it's hard for me to explain anything that isn't from my own perspective and, have it, resonate. And so, from any other perspective other than straight white male.
Was there concern in the writers' room? Because again, you've got a well-represented all across the board writers' room as well. Yeah, well,
I don't 100% agree with that. I think there's, we have work to do. If we get a season 3, I do, here's what I will say. I think we were very well represented by women. Okay. I think we were underrepresented, particularly if we get to move forward. I think, we need to take greater strides, and we are in terms of, targeting LGBTQ writers, particularly female LGBTQ writers, and particularly women of color as well on the staff. It's like we had kind of a revolving door. It was just nature of like Animation Guild versus like Writers Guild. We had a revolving door of female writers on the show, who ended up finding either work doing Writers Guild work, which is higher paying, work on broadcast shows, which is higher paying. So if you're looking at the roster of writers on the show, it looks like we have a disproportionately high number of female writers. But given that it was a revolving door, it's deceptive. And I think that, moving forward, I think, we're going to hire only female writers versus like the returning. We know that there are returning writers who are available currently if the job were to start tomorrow. But I think, in terms of the new hires, it's only going to be women. It's probably only going to be women of color or, LGBTQ female writers, especially moving forward, given what we did in the finale. It's like we need the LGBTQ perspective more.
I guess I was thinking more of the mansplaining argument, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. There's women. Yeah, so that's where I was coming from. But I can hear what you're saying, and I think that's great. That's terrific.
Yeah, but back to your question. No, I don't think in terms of the female writers that were present there in the writing of the finale, Sarah Peters wrote the draft of the finale.
Yeah, I saw her name on. Yeah.
So we didn't. That wasn't a thing that was spoken out loud, or a concern that was spoken out loud amongst the writers, let's say.
Okay. Well, all in all, man, great. Seriously, I think a terrific 26 episodes, and obviously a really great season, second season. And I only hope that the exposure on HBO Max, dictates that, well, we got to do a third one if it's doing so well. Why would we stop? I mean, this is DC Universe's Rick and Morty, and it absolutely should be. And I think you guys have proven that with great humor, great writing, great acting. The production values are terrific. The designs are great. And I mean, it's the kind of show that DC fans absolutely love, but I think it's absolutely approachable for new viewers as well that aren't as hip to the DC universe and the way it works, or even Harley and Ivy for that matter. So
yeah, if this show can end up being the sort of entry point into the 80 plus years of DC canon, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
That's awesome, man. Honestly, Patrick, as going back to our first conversation about Powerless, I'm so happy that things have worked out, because you get this universe, and you and Justin managed to get the right writers that, even if they're coming in and never heard of this universe, they kind of get it. And the final product is evidence of that. So well done, dude. Well done.
I'm really proud of everybody that worked on the show. So,
awesome,
I think the appetite for another season for sure. So knock on wood.
That's great, man. Well, as always, great conversation. Thanks so much. And then really you went above and beyond putting up with, sacrificing a weekend day to sit with me and talk about these episodes and everything. So thank you so much for your time in doing this. And as always, continued success, and please stay in touch. And whatever's coming up production wise, whether it's in the DC universe or not, you're always welcome back, because I really appreciate the kind of writing that you do. And I want to hear about what's coming up next for Patrick Schumacker. So thank you.
Thanks, John.
There we go, man. I'm going to end the broadcast, the recording.